Welcome to Legacy of the Arts. I'm Taba Dale, and today I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Rebecca Thompson. She's the recipient of a full scholarship to Cornell University, where she took her Master's in Fine Art. Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you, Taba.
You came to your career somewhat late in life. How has that affected your work and your process?
Well, you know, I've changed my idea of everything being in a set order in life, and that you know, it happens one way or another. And coming later, it's made me really value my time. I was 40 when I went to my Master's of Arts program, started it, and it just gave me a different perspective of all the things I had gone through in life that prepared me to get to that point and have something different to say than I would have had at 20.
Your family is part Cherokee. This must be a powerful influence on your desire to create works that have the harmony of the people and plants and animals.
You know, I'm one of the generation where having Native American ancestry was actually a history of shame and hiddenness, and so it wasn't really accepted in my family. It was something that was hidden, and so by the time I came along, I was very curious about what was this culture, what was, you know, my grandfather all about, and my grandmother, and why was it hidden? And so I really have worked quite a bit to find out how can I embody this and teachings that were lost into my own work. And somehow I think you just innately, I want to work with the land. I want to work with materials that are healthy for us. I want to connect to spirit and do so in a way that's respectful.
Your work often ties into the history of a place and the language, and very much honors the land. Can you talk about this?
My passion is, when I get to a site or there's a project, is researching everything that I can about the people, the land, the history that came as far back as I can find. If it was 500 years ago, what happened here? If it was 100 years ago, were there wars, battles on this property? Were there fires? Were there deaths? Was there a burial ground? What happened? And that story I try to bring out into the site of what would I want people to know now, and how can you honor whatever went before you. And I feel that nothing happens in a vacuum, and we come to a site and just to place a piece of work and say, okay, here it is, take it or leave it, isn't my style. I'd prefer to link time, to link people from the past to the present, and then think about the future with that. Language comes into play for me, as language is every bit of material that I use has its own cultural embodiment within it. If you're sitting on a wooden chair, you feel differently in a wooden chair than you might in a plastic chair. And every material is actually saying something to you about context. And I really try to be as conscious as I can about what each material is saying to each person and what dimensions mean to people. So the language of stability is very large scale and grounded, low to the ground. If I make something really streamlined and thin, it's going to feel more unstable. And so just depending on what I want to say about the place or the piece, I call that a language. It's more didactic than making something that is decorative and a placement. I want you to have something to take with you.
Real connection. Mm-hmm. Public art is a tough field. What motivated you to get into that realm, and what keeps you motivated?
When I was doing my Master's of Fine Arts at Cornell University, upstate New York, I started the program and 9/11 happened. And as soon as 9/11 happened, the media changed, the world changed. And in my mind, you can no longer, as an artist, for me, think about self. I was thinking more on a broader sense of community. What is community about? How are we linking? How are we living out our lives and our beliefs with each other? And what does it mean when we say we believe something? So I went through and felt that we're disconnected many times. The environment in upstate New York is very cold, very harsh, and people are very disconnected. And I thought, how can I do something that will bring people together? So I volunteered, and if you volunteer, you can do a lot of things in life. I think, you know, many things can happen if you just say, here I am, what can I do? And just show up. So I showed up on different projects where I worked for free and designed and started doing memorials and seating and gardens that brought people together. And then within that context of upstate New York, I used materials that were part of the environment. They were the vernacular, wood that was reclaimed from the site, stone, anything that was from the area, I would try to bring into the project.
Well, I know that you're often using natural materials, and that you definitely have a growing concern for the planet, don't you?
Well, I've always had that concern, and I find it interesting that in the last 100 years, humanity has not had that concern. It's not a new idea to be sustainable. We use that word now. It's the catchword for artists, for economists, but indigenous cultures, we're always thinking of what is best for the planet, what is best for people, what's best for community, and we've lost sight of that. So it's tough now with all the materials. There's so many seductive materials. There's plastics and glass and
glittery things.
Yeah, things that won't last, or things that are very toxic. Paints, even if we're using cadmiums, reds, they're toxic to the artist. Solvents are toxic to us. So I'm trying to marry the idea of, if I really believe in the planet, if I really believe in what I'm trying to do, then how do I choose materials that are healthy for my body while I'm working with it, and healthy for the planet in the process as well as the end result? And how will I get longevity out of the project? How can it stay here for 500 years if that was the goal of the project, instead of looking dilapidated or worse in time? I want pieces to look better with time.
Don't want them to get shabby.
No, and some of them take a while. I may finish it, and I know that in 20 years the plants that were planted around are going to look more beautiful, or the stone is going to look more beautiful in time versus at the moment it's placed.
Well, I just need to ask you one last question. It's surprising to many people who meet you and see you do such large-scale works. What do you say when people comment on this?
At first I was surprised that would be a question, but then I think I came to the understanding that even though I'm 5'2" and I want to make 40-foot tall pieces, that really appeals to me. I don't really realize how small of a person I am, and I try to let the idea live, and the idea, the vision, be as all-encompassing as it can be, and that's exciting to me, and it changes me. It helps me overcome fear of power tools, fear of whatever the site brings. I'm always learning. I'm always being transformed, and without that, it would be boring to me, and I wouldn't learn as much as I'm learning along the way.
I am in complete awe of you, and I could listen to you all day, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Taba.
And thank you for joining us on Legacy of the Arts. And remember, in the words of Duncan Phillips, art intensifies the joy of living.